I've realized I've been stuck in comfortable patterns for far too long. For whatever reason, I believe that I have found a comforting way of living my life that I am okay with. And that's wake up, get on phone, then go make breakfast, then watch something on TV, then quickly prepare for the day when you need to go to work, or just simply use up all your time on television. And I have to admit, this awareness of not being a person who is in complete control of wanting to shape their destiny in a way where they're going to have this fulfilling and happy life when they finally get to a certain age or a certain reward or a certain threshold does make me a little scared, I'm not going to lie. Now, normally I would recount my day, but I've been listening to this podcast called Diary of a CEO, where the host of the show, I'm forgetting his name right now, was interviewing a man named David. Wait, no. Yes, I think it was David Huberman. Pretty sure. Basically, they were talking about how dopamine works and what are the essentials that someone who is never satisfied with the status quo and wants to continue moving forward needs to do if they want to lead an extremely successful and fulfilling career. Listening to this was quite eye opening for me because one of the keys of advice that the man who was being interviewed, David Huberman, I believe, I sure hope I'm not getting his name wrong. I want to say Andy Huberman for some reason. Gosh, I should have done my research before hitting the record button. But I do know his last name's Huberman, so I'm just going to call him Mr. Huberman from now on. I know that his advice really struck a chord with me. It made me reflect on the content that I produce for this channel. Now, the thing is that I actually do the video diaries more so for me than I do for any kind of audience, mostly as a way to keep track of my day to day activities to help build a sense of self awareness. And I simply put it online as a way of archiving and going back to how I spend my time. But the scary thing that I'm realizing is that Mr. Huberman said that one of the things that might be detrimental when you're posting things online is sharing too much about your personal life. And he said this could be problematic because it's something that may be seen as something more sacred. And instead, what you really should be doing is taking knowledge. Well, actually, I'm going to put a large disclaimer here. I'm going off by memory. So some things are going to be fuzzy. So everything that I say that I got out of the podcast from here is entirely of my own opinion and of what Mr. Huberman was communicating. But I've just listened to this podcast, so anything that I report back could have been a game of telephone that may be misrepresenting the true full scope and picture of what he was communicating. So that's my disclaimer. If you really want to know what he was talking about, go watch the Diary of a CEO, Mr. Huberman interview podcast yourself if you are interested. But what I got out of it was that apparently it's best to find a skill that you know you have a passion for, that you're interested in, and you need to continuously research and develop that skill that you genuinely enjoy doing. For him, it's studying how the human mind works based on the conversation that I was hearing, and then sharing that information back with others, either with his own colleagues, friends, family, or the Huberman podcast as well. And basically, it's very deeply, intricately, well thought out discussions that are highly well researched on how the human mind works on a chemical level. And the thing is, I'm of the belief that human beings can both be influenced chemically, but I also think that they can also be influenced in a level that's beyond the chemical interactions in the brain. Now, I don't want to say like spiritual because maybe it's, well, okay, fine, I'll say spiritual. Why not? Um yeah, something of akin to a spiritual connection. And he stated this through basically having a group of friends that he always checks in to see if they're doing okay, if they need anything, and then they may call back, and then whenever they have time they hang out with each other. And he has this insanely deep sense of gratitude and of thankfulness for hanging out with these friends because they accept him for who he is and he accepts them for who they are. And this feeling of acceptance is worth so much that he wouldn't trade his friends for all the money in the world. And he described this sort of connection as something on a higher level that's beyond dopamine releases or chemical releases or anything like that. And that's why I use the spiritual explanation, because perhaps it could be spiritual, or perhaps we could see things through a clinical lens and it just simply being us going back to our tribal roots of needing to find others to survive the harsh walks of life with. And that is entirely a possibility as well. Now, what exactly was I even going off on? I kind of got on a tangent there. I'm very sorry. But basically, he said that the best thing you could do is just find something you're passionate about, pursue it like it's your last day on earth. And this is hyperbole, by the way. He didn't say this stuff exactly. This is my interpretation of how I believe he said it. So don't go thinking I'm saying putting words in his mouth, because this is just me spicing up what I believe he said. But it was very insightful because it really made me think about how I was listening to some of my older videos and I kind of realized something. I'm in this comfortable, sort of relaxed and casual state when I'm in these videos talking about my day to day life. And I look back and I listen to my day to day life, and it's very stagnant. I mean, I say I want to pursue something, and then I end up not pursuing it, and then I fall into these rabbit holes of research, exploration into topics that have nothing to do with what I'm trying to teach myself. I mean, trade skills of storytelling, filmmaking, which I have a great interest in doing, But then you see that YouTube thumbnail about a kid who only has a brain that's 2% large when compared to 100% human brain, and he somehow manages to beat the odds and is still somehow alive. And then you just have to click on it and watch it. And I don't want to poo poo exploration or getting ideas from other sources of entertainment or documentaries or information. But there's such a thing as overconsumption and over reliance on it. And I think, and listening to the podcast, it had a very, very powerful description of how our dopamine levels are basically well stocked when we wake up, and throughout the day, how we spend that dopamine is going to influence how our day ended up feeling. And I thought that was very interesting and very powerful advice. Now, apparently, he did mention that one of the best things you can do to sort of reset your mind and go into a state of what he calls homeostasis, which is sort of a term, or not sort of, sorry, it's a term used by.
Oh, good night.
Hello.
Good night.
Good night.
Love you.
Love you too. Mwah. It's a term used by neuroscientists to basically describe a brain that's in perfect chemical balance. It's able to have a completely satisfying state of existence by having a well regulated sense of dopamine distribution, and among other factors that, I mean, this is my explanation. Again, don't take it as fact, take it as my interpretation based on what I've heard. But that's what I got out of it. And yeah, one of their tips to reach homeostasis is abstinence from a habit that you continue to do that isn't really moving the needle or pushing you forward in your life to new interesting undiscovered territory. So it's starting to make me think maybe maybe I should do the video journals. I should continue to do them. Or maybe I should dedicate my energy to improving on a trade skill that could nab me opportunities in the future and simply just document that process instead. Because when I put my energy into something that's going to be building a skill instead of recounting a day where I basically did absolutely nothing to move the needle at all, maybe dedicating energy to one that's documenting my ability to pursue building a skill such as video editing would be a far more preferable means of dedicating energy than doing something like talking about using the restroom or what I ate or certain things that happened in the day. I mean, that can be fun, and I'm not saying it isn't. And maybe there could be some benefits to sharing, to preserving that information. But after listening to this, it definitely does make me recontextualize and reconsider how I should be using my time and how I should be using this channel. Maybe, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to stop posting update videos, but what I am saying is that it's making me reconsider what should I prioritize, what should be more important for me to pursue, and what path should I go down to move the needle to have a day that really felt like it made a difference in my life. So yeah, those are my thoughts, And thanks for listening, and have yourselves a great night. Good night, everybody.